Your brain does something most brains don't.
And for years, nobody told you it was a strength. Here's the thing it does. The moment you finish learning one thing, it doesn't rest. It goes hunting for the next. A documentary ends, and you're already 3 searches deep into something unrelated. You master the basics of a skill, and right when a normal person would settle in and go deeper, your mind quietly says, "Okay, what else?" and pulls you somewhere new. You've probably treated that restlessness like a bug, a character flaw. The reason you never stick with anything. But it isn't a flaw. It's a measurable difference in how your brain is wired to seek, connect, and reward itself. And once you understand the machinery underneath it, everything you've ever called a weakness flips into the rarest cognitive advantage there is. You already know who you are, even if you've never had the right word for it. You're the person with too many interests. The one whose mind refuses to live in a single lane. The world has a clumsy insult for you. Jack of all trades, master of none. And a quiet voice inside has probably repeated it more times than you'd like to admit. But there's an older, far more accurate word, and your brain fits it perfectly. Polymath. And what's happening inside the polymath brain is not a failure to focus. It's a different operating system entirely. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what makes the polymath brain different on a neurological level, why it craves novelty, why it connects things other minds keep separate, and why it physically struggles to stay in one well for 30 years. I'll show you why this wiring was punished for most of history and is suddenly becoming the most valuable mind in the room. And I'll give you 3 concrete ways to work with your brain instead of constantly fighting it. If you've ever wondered whether something was wrong with you for wanting to learn everything, stick around because the answer is the opposite of what you've been told. If this is already describing you a little too accurately, you've found your people. Subscribe because this channel exists for minds exactly like yours. Let's get into your brain. Let's start with the curiosity itself because it isn't just a personality trait, it has a chemical signature. When you learn something new, your brain releases a small reward. Not when you've mastered it, when you're in the act of discovering it. That hit of novelty, that little spark of, oh, interesting, is a genuine neurological reward, and some brains are simply more sensitive to it than others. The polymath brain is tuned to chase that signal hard. The reward isn't in arriving, it's in the climb. Which explains the single most misunderstood thing about you. Why your enthusiasm tends to peak when something is new and fade once you've basically figured it out. You're not lazy and you're not flaky. Your reward system is calibrated for discovery, not for maintenance. The moment a subject stops surprising you, the chemical reason you were drawn to it quietly switches off, and your brain goes looking for the next thing that lights it up. A specialist's brain is wired closer to the opposite. It gets its deepest satisfaction from mastery, from going further down one path than anyone else, from the slow, patient deepening of a single field. That's a gift, and the world genuinely needs it. But it's a different gift than yours, and here's the part that matters. Neither one is broken. You spent years comparing your discovery-tuned brain to a mastery-tuned brain and concluding that yours is defective. It isn't. It's running a different program, and that program has a superpower the other one structurally cannot access. That superpower is connection. And there's a real reason your brain is good at it. Every subject you've ever wandered into leaves a trace, a loose web of associations sitting in your mind. The specialist builds one enormous, dense, isolated web around a single topic. The polymath builds dozens of smaller webs across wildly different fields. And here's the crucial part: those webs touch. Your brain is constantly, almost involuntarily, noticing that a pattern from one field looks suspiciously like a pattern in a totally unrelated one. A specialist staring down their single deep tunnel will never see it, because the thing they need is sitting in a field they've never visited.
You've visited a dozen.
So you're the one who notices. This is why nearly every real breakthrough in history happened at an intersection rather than at the bottom of a hole. Think about how the modern study of networks began, not with someone going deeper into mathematics, but with a mathematician noticing that the abstract puzzle of crossing 7 bridges in one Prussian city was secretly the same shape as a problem about points and connections. That single act of seeing one thing as another, bridges as lines, islands as dots, quietly birthed a branch of math that now underpins everything from the internet to how diseases spread, to how your social feed works. It didn't come from drilling. It came from someone whose mind treated two unrelated things as the same kind of thing.
That is precisely what your brain does all day, often without your permission.
You don't have a focus problem. You have a connection engine that never switches off. If you're feeling seen right now, take 2 seconds and subscribe. There's a whole community here built around exactly this kind of mind, and we're just getting started. Because there's a question I know is forming, and we have to address it head on. It's a fair question, and an important one, because from the outside, the two can look almost identical. The hyperfixation on something new, the abandoned projects, the mind that leaps from idea to idea, yes, all of that overlaps. But the engine underneath is often completely different. ADHD, clinically, centers on executive function, the brain's system for steering attention, managing impulses, holding things, and working memory. For many people with ADHD, the jump away from a task isn't a choice. Their attention gets pulled off course against their will, which makes the boring but necessary stuff genuinely hard. The struggle is fundamentally about regulating attention that won't stay put. The polymath pattern usually runs the other direction. It's not a shortage of attention, it's a surplus of curiosity. The shift is a choice, a fast one, but a choice. You're not being dragged off the task, you're being pulled toward a connection that suddenly looks irresistible. Picture working on something routine and realizing a method you picked up somewhere completely unrelated would make it dramatically better, and you stop to do exactly that. That's not your focus failing. That's your connection engine firing. And to be clear, you can absolutely be both. Plenty of polymaths also have ADHD, and once they build systems for the executive function side, the curiosity becomes rocket fuel. The point isn't to diagnose yourself. It's to stop labeling an abundance as a deficit. For most of history, the deep, narrow brain got the rewards. The specialist who knew one thing better than anyone could charge a premium, because that depth was rare and hard to replace. The polymath brain looked unfocused on paper and got paid like it. That's the world your wiring was punished in. That world is ending fast for one reason. The deep, narrow stuff is becoming cheap. The kind of single-domain expertise that used to take a lifetime to acquire can now be summoned in seconds. The specialist's deepest moat is draining. And as it drains, the value rushes to the one thing that can't be commoditized, the ability to stand above a dozen fields at once and see which combination actually creates something new.
That's not a mastery skill.
That's a connection skill. That's your brain.
As machines and specialists go deeper into their individual wells, the rarest and most valuable person becomes the one who knows which wells matter and how to connect them.
The polymath brain wasn't built for the world that's leaving. It was built for the one that's arriving. And the biggest problems left to solve all but require it. The genuinely hard challenges of our time are tangled, multi-field messes. They cannot be solved from inside one specialty by definition. They need a mind that can hold the science and the economics and the human psychology and the history all at once and weave them. That mind has a name now. It's yours.
So let's make this usable.
3 practices built around how your brain actually runs. First, feed the discovery, schedule the depth. Since your brain rewards novelty and resists maintenance, stop pretending you'll grind through the boring middle of a subject through willpower. Instead, deliberately give yourself a steady diet of new sparks, but pair each one with a tiny, finishable project before you're allowed to move on. Learn the new thing, then immediately make one small, concrete thing with it. You satisfy the discovery craving, and you leave behind actual finished evidence instead of another abandoned half-start.
Second, keep a connection log.
Your brain produces these cross-field links constantly and then loses most of them. So catch them. 2 columns. On one side, the interesting thing you just learned. On the other, what it reminds you of from a completely different field. You're not solving anything. You're training the connection engine to fire on purpose instead of by accident. Over weeks, this becomes your single most original asset, a private map of links nobody else on Earth has because nobody else wandered the exact fields you did. Third, run short obsession cycles guilt-free. Stop framing a new interest as a lifelong vow you'll inevitably break. A few weeks, one clear finish line, then you choose. For 3 weeks, I'm going deep on this one thing, and the goal is to produce one small finished result. When the cycle ends, re-up or walk away with zero shame because you didn't quit anything. You completed a cycle and added one more web to a mind that runs on exactly this. You're not failing to commit.
You're feeding a brain that learns in bursts.
So here's what I need you to walk away with.
Your brain isn't broken.
It's wired for a different job than the one the world kept handing you. You're not a jack of all trades and master of none. You're a connection machine in a world that's finally desperate for connection machines. Your inability to stop learning was never a defect of focus. It was a brain doing exactly what it was built to do, gathering far-flung pieces so that one day it could assemble something no single-track mind ever could. That pile of half-finished projects and abandoned obsessions you felt guilty about? That's not a record of your failures. It's the raw material your brain has been quietly stockpiling for a connection it hasn't made yet. So stop apologizing for the way your mind works. Start using it on purpose.
You don't have too many interests.
You have a polymath brain, and it's about to be the most valuable thing in the room. If this hit home and you finally feel a little less alone in your own head, subscribe and join a growing tribe of polymath minds who are done apologizing for how they think. And I want to know in the comments, what are 2 completely unrelated things you're obsessed with that you've never been able to explain to anyone? Drop them below.
Thanks for watching.
Now go let your brain do what it was built for.